Good afternoon. This is Will Gibbs, and
Excuse me, Walt Lumpkin.
Walt likes to eat on the air, although he's been reprimanded at times for doing so. But one of the things that we thought we might talk about today is to sort of brainstorm about things we used to do or have that are no longer. For instance, you used to, if you were moving, the first thing that you would plan for is to have the telephone company come out and install a telephone line. You don't do that anymore. And I mean, they would install the phones in the rooms that you wanted. And at first they were rotary dial, and then in the early 60s it switched over to touch tone. And that's something that if you're watching this and you're probably under 40 years old, you've never heard of or know anything about. And then something else I thought about as Walt finishes up there is S&H green stamps. At one time that was a huge deal. It's not anymore. They're not even here. And you say, well, why would people want them? Well, that's how you'd use them like currency and or reward points. But you had to stick them in a book, and people would have books upon books of green stamps that would be saved, and then you'd go to the S&H green stamp store and get you a waffle iron or whatever it would be that you were wanting.
Yeah, and I got 15 boxes of green stamp books in my attic right now. My mother gave me as a going away present.
And they say, and you've got the books, but the stamps haven't been pasted in yet.
No, that's right.
Yeah, I can remember my mother would give me a sponge, and she says you take a sheet of them and just put sheet after sheet. But I mean, you would get them as when you bought something, they would give you green stamps. So if you went out and let's say that you bought a set of tires, and they would have a sticker on their door that we give S&H green stamps. So you'd get X amount of stamps because that encouraged you to shop at that vendor. And anyway, but then typically the mothers and fathers would have the kids stick them in the books because it was very tedious work, and your hands then were all sticky from the glue. But the other thing I thought of,
You actually thought of something?
Well, go ahead. If you got something you want to contribute.
Oh, good.
Okay.
I just interjected me.
The use of, if you're doing something and you're writing it and you're going to do it in multiples, you would write it out, and then underneath it, if you wanted to, like if you were an order for something and for different people and it's the same thing, and you'd use ditto, which was 2 dots, and you just put 2 dots underneath it, and then the next however many. Well, I showed that to somebody the other day in a store, some young people, and they'd never even heard of it. And there's just so many things that, like at one time, a can of beer or soda, you used what was called a church key, which was just the pointy end of an opener. It was just a flat piece of steel with a pointy end on it, and you'd do it like that, and you'd make a little triangle on each side of the can, and that's how you would open it.
I don't remember that, Will.
You don't?
No. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Well, I think you probably do. But from there, that's where then the pull tab cans that you use today was the upgrade of that.
Yeah.
So that you didn't have to have a church key to get into the soda or the beer or whatever it was that you were buying. But the kids they wouldn't know how to even use it. I mean, until you show them. Everything's a twist off today, which is fine. But the kids today just don't have the empirical knowledge of stuff that we grew up with. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, anytime that I figured out if they don't know what it is, they'll Google it up and figure out how to do it. That's what I do, and I'm sure that's what kids do too.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, that doesn't make any sense. You know, if they don't have a phone, like this, they don't know how to hardly use another phone. That you would dial a number, and something else on the phone thing. It used to be that you would have a prefix, like the prefix that I grew up with in Fort Worth was PE89060, and that stood for Pershing, PE. But everybody had a prefix on their home phone or any phone for the and you, before that you would just dial maybe 4 digits because it was only one. There weren't very many phones, and so it didn't have to have the different identifications like Pershing. You would just be 89060. So they had to increase it, and then they've increased the area codes and so forth to keep up with demand. But
Yeah.
Those are just things that we grew up with and accepted as a way of life.
Well, hey, Will, you got that phone book over there that's got the yellow pages in it?
Yeah, no yellow pages.
No yellow pages anymore. People have cellular devices in their pockets, in their pocketbooks, in their shirt pockets, in your hand.
There are salesmen that supported their family on yellow book sales.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or, yellow pages sales.
Yes. I remember a lot of times if I was working in an office or something, and then the yellow page person would call and make an appointment to come by and see us, so they could see what we wanted to say in our yellow page ad, and then they would bill us for it.
Yeah,
Wasn't free.
no, and a lot of times half of the book would be white pages, the other half of the book would be the yellow pages.
Yeah.
Well, then in some cases in larger metropolitan areas, they would just have a total yellow pages and a total white pages
Right.
book. Well, people made a living delivering those. There's all kinds of businesses that have basically gone away
Yeah.
that at one time were a way that people made a living doing.
Yeah. Also, if you was going to kind of come up with a name for your business back in those days, you'd say, okay, ABC Plumbing,
That's right.
because you would be at the very beginning of the plumbing
And
advertisers.
you'd have double A, then triple A plumbing.
Yeah, double A plumbing, triple A, triple A.
Yeah.
all that
Everybody
stuff.
wanted to, because the perception was that the customer is going to the very first one.
Yeah, right.
Which isn't always true, but that was the perception.
Yeah. Anyway, they're just not in the yellow pages anymore much. If they are, they're pretty abbreviated,
Yeah.
and they don't encompass everything. The last one I saw is more like a Christian yellow pages, and it had a lot of things in there, but it didn't have nearly all the companies. I guess it's because not all companies are Christian. I don't know. But anyway, a lot of things. I'm sitting here trying to remember a thing of my past was coupons, much like the green stamps. My grandmother, bless her heart, she dipped Tube Rose snuff all her life, her adult life. And Tube Rose would come in little cans and they'd have 2 or 3 coupons on it. Well, she would tear those coupons off and put them in her kitchen. And that's how we got cameras. That's how we got a lot of the kitchen gadgets that we did, because you could send in those Tube Rose coupons for prizes. They don't do that anymore.
No.
Raleigh cigarettes. My grandfather smoked Raleigh cigarettes, coupons. I don't think he gave his away though. He kept his.
You know, something else, when you look at all the new cars today, they all have certain safety equipment. Of course, when they first started out, they did not have seat belts. Those didn't come around till the 1960s. And at first they weren't required, but now, of course, they are. But also, the right side mirror, you had a left side mirror to look at on the outside, but you had to pay extra to get one on the right side.
Yes.
And they even had them at one time up on almost halfway up the hood, which looked kind of cool, but they really weren't much of a safety feature. So a lot of the features that you see on cars today they just weren't even available back then.
Mm.
And also, when you went to the car lot, you wouldn't have a great selection. They would show you some of it, but typically you would order your car.
Yeah, you you would.
And you could get it with it. At one time, you could get a selection of interiors, and they go with paint that you would order, but you couldn't always get. After a while, they'll say, "No, if you're going to get that color painted on the car, you're going to have to take this interior." And then they just went to standardized. We'll just ship you all the cars, and people will buy what's available, which actually happened.
I know what you're talking about. And I was in high school in the mid-'60s. We had these guys that just graduated, okay? So they're making a little money. So they'd order them a car. One guy I knew, he ordered him a 64 Chevy, 409 cubic inch, 4 in the floor. So what did his buddy do? He ordered him a 427 Ford, 4 in the floor. So we were constantly going back and forth, but they'd order those things. It'd take 3 or 4 weeks to come in. It wouldn't just, hey, okay, your car's here. Just ordered it yesterday. You don't do that. You ordered it, and you waited, and you waited, and you watched everybody else outrun you. And as soon as when your car come in, it was like you never had to wait at all. It's like, I don't know what it is. It's a feeling of, like growing up, I wanted a horse. I always rode somebody else's horse out where we live. Wanted a horse so bad, and when I finally got my horse, I did not remember what it was like to want that horse.
By the way, on those big block engines, if you got one, you got it. They had the flags, the Chevy flags on the side, and in between those flags, it would say 427 or 409. Well, some people couldn't afford to buy those big block engines, and they'd go steal those emblems off the car and put it on their car, and just never open the hood and show anybody what was in there. But it was a status symbol to have a 409 with those crossed Chevy flags there.
Sure it was. Sure it was.
I never would steal them, but I heard people that did.
Well, I had one.
Well, you did have one.
I did have one, but that was after I got out of high school. But that's another video. What do you think, Will?
I think we're done.
We're done. Stick a fork in us.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.